Will Lyles practice.
I can get everybody's attention. Thank you all very much. Hope you all had a wonderful first session and enjoyed your lunch. Welcome to this session. This session is very dear to my heart. I met this gentleman in the fall of '98 when he joined the baseball team and became my rat. So to have him come back and share his story is very touching and heartwarming to me. Looking back, we had some good time catching up last night. So I hope you all enjoy this session. Without further ado, Mr. Will Lyles.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for being here, listening to my story. I'm probably the last person I ever thought I'd be back here speaking. I will tell you that I was not the world's greatest cadet while I was here. Shaving was few and far between, and so was shining shoes. So the fact that I actually went into the Army is pretty funny, comparatively, considering what the kind of, not that it was a great idea, but was the cadet I was while I was here. So like Dave said, I'm a class of 2002. He was my dyke, my rat year. A year after I graduated, I finally decided to join the Army. Once I graduated from here, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really wasn't sure where I was headed, but I thought that I would learn something, give me some resume bullets, and figure out where I saw myself going in the future. It turned out that was the best thing I'd ever done. What I was doing fit me. I was selected to be an infantry officer. I went to officer candidate school first. I had to go to basic training, officer candidate school. Then I went to IOBC, Ranger School and Airborne. Was deployed, or 6 weeks later, I left for Iraq, Baghdad, Iraq with 3rd Infantry Division in 2005. Came back, deployed again as a company executive officer in 07-08 during the surge. That's probably the time where I learned the most about myself as a leader. We lost 15 KIA in the first 90 days in 3 companies worth of people. I mean, we were just getting waylaid left and right. We had gone into an area that hadn't seen coalition forces in over a year, and it was a very trying time. We had to build a patrol base from scratch, which I was in charge of, and we lost a lot of people. That was probably the hardest thing I'd ever done. It wasn't necessarily me, but we lost 7 people from my former platoon. I had got promoted and moved to another company, but we were all in the same fire base, so I had lost 7 guys from my former platoon. I really struggled with that. Came back from that deployment, went through Captain's Career Course, then the Special Forces Qualification Course, and was assigned to, made it through, thankfully, a 7th group. As soon as we were done with Robin Sage, I knew what company I was going to, and I immediately started training up for deployment to Afghanistan or Ruzgan province. If you ever get a chance to see inside the Green Beret on National Geographic, the fire base that they are at, that was my fire base. It is a rough place. Somebody actually dies during the documentary, and it is legit. They don't pull any punches. The fact that I was even there was just, I grew up in the Army. I can't go on. I could probably be a recruiter, even though while I was here I wouldn't have been, but it was by far the best thing I've done. I grew up a lot. I saw the world in different places that I would have never gotten the opportunity to see. It taught me to be the first first guy in the office in the morning, the last to leave, never expecting anybody to do anything that I wasn't willing to do, and leading from the front. I'll never forget the first time I was ever beat on a ruck march, and I could never happen again. I had to run that guy into the ground the next time because I never heard the end of it. But after that, I made sure that never happened again. My time in service was amazing. Like I said, I really grew up. I could be a recruiter and tell you all of it, but I'm going to go into the day that my life changed. So on August 28, 2010, we were doing what is essentially a movement to contact. At that point in time, kinetic engagements were not being approved, but we knew what we were doing. We had UAVs on station as well as A-10s. And we were doing a movement to contact. There was a choice that I had to make whether to air assault in or do a mounted movement into. I chose mounted movement just because there was threat of anti-aircraft guns in the mountains and surrounding village. This village sits on a peninsula, so it's surrounded by a river on one side and mountains on the other. So literally the only way in is a mountain crossing. They'd have pretty advanced notice that we were coming. And the chance of us getting aircraft, because where we were was so remote, we probably wouldn't have got it to begin with. We SP'd that morning at 4 a.m. We had to do this mountain crossing. Once we did the mountain crossing, it was just daylight. And I'm going to apologize up front. I'll probably get choked up once or twice while I'll tell you this story. So on the way over, after we do the mountain pass crossing, there's an IED in the road. We were there for quite a while waiting on IED or EOD to dispose of it. They finally disposed of it. While we're stationary, we're taking sniper fire. At the time, it was not very accurate. It is not a high rate of fire, but we were taking fire. Once we reduced the IED, we started moving to this village. It's called Garmab. It's in the middle of, it's in Aruzgan province, but I decided to split my team up into two sections. My team sergeant's section would take, there's a hilltop, there's the village of Garmab, a south hilltop, and then a village called Resh, or forget the name of it, down to the south of the south hilltop. So my ODA was hitting Garmab, and my best friend, or one of my good friends, his ODA was going to a village to the south. As we advanced further towards the village, the rate of fire picked up. We went ahead and split teams. I was establishing a support by fire on the north hill. My team sergeant, his section was going to establish a support by fire on the south hill, just because you had perfect overwatch over the whole village, so we'd have good fields of fire. On the way in, the UAVs that saw all the women and children, and they were taking their animals too, and exfilling out of the village and heading south. So we knew they were waiting. Obviously, they're shooting at us too, so that's probably a good idea what's coming. So we split the team up. My team starts clearing the north side, the hill on the north side at EOD and a dog team. I did not have a medic on my section. My medic was shot the week before in one of my 18 DILSs was shot the week prior in another mission that we had responded to as QRF. So I was down a medic. We start clearing this hill. The EOD team and the dog team are nearing the top, and then they just opened up with everything. It's machine gun fire. I mean, we were taking rounds. It was just, all hell broke loose. I jumped out of my Humvee, and my guys were up at the top of the hill naked. I jumped out of my Humvee because I was trailed behind the dog team, the EOD team. I jumped out of my Humvee, ran to the top of the hill. I was shooting back and trying to assess where the fire was coming from and let my personnel that are up on the hill get over to some cover behind this fence line over here. And my team sergeant comes running up the hill, and he's like, "Hey, sir, I really got to call this up. I'm going to call this up so we can get permission to use our air support." At that time, it was very political. You want to avoid human casualties, obviously, for good reason. But there's a statement in my Humvee that you had to read word for word, essentially taking legal responsibility for what is about to happen if you use air support. And it was up to the colonel of the CJ SOTF in order to use that air support. He came up and said, "Hey, sir, I'm going to go call this up. We're going to start and see if we could use our air support." I said, "No, it's my job. I got this. I can't get sucked in up here." So I started to run down the hill, and 3 steps into it, the IED went off. At first, I was really dazed and confused. I thought it was a mortar round at that time. They're generally not very active, they're not very accurate with their indirect fire. So I was on the ground and just had this mouthful of dirt, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, get my wits about me, and all my teeth were loose. I remember that because I was like, my mom's gonna kill me. She spent a lot of money on my braces growing up. She's pissed. So the dust finally cleared. I was trying to get up, and I couldn't get up, and my legs felt really hot and heavy, and I just could not. I had rolled over. I was trying to stand up. I couldn't stand up, and the dust finally cleared. The dust cleared, and my left leg was gone at the knee. My right leg, it was still there. Not to be gross or graphic, but it was hamburger meat. It was just good. My boot's still there, but my foot was essentially gone. I didn't freak out. It's probably the most surreal thing I could ever describe to you, because you want to beg for your life. It's 120 degrees, you're in this massive firefight. You're chopped birds 45 minutes away. You got to wait on an Apache escort. You're laying there, your legs are gone, and I called for the medic on the radio. I didn't freak out. My guys came. My JTAC, who was talking to the aircraft, he had dropped his map when I took off the rundown. Otherwise, he would have been hurt. My assistant detachment commander, he was down he had shrapnel in his side. We weren't wearing side plates. He had shrapnel in his side all over. 3 of my dead Afghan or partner forces were dead. We're in this massive firefight. My buddy's team in the village to the south, they're in this massive firefight. I had 2 guys, they put tourniquets on. Another two people are holding pressure in my groin, trying to stop the bleeding. They're rotating every couple of minutes. So I said, listen, tell my family I was okay. It's like, sir, don't talk like that. You're gonna be all right, you're gonna be fine. It's like, look, I'm not giving up. Just tell my family I did good, I was okay. Sorry. It's a hard thing to see or do or like be there, like in the moment. It's never think it's gonna be you. Like I've been doing this my 3rd trip. It's whatever, you know, it's gonna be all right. So you're laying there and they put the tourniquets on, they're rotating back and forth. They move my Humvee up and I mean, my gunner's just, I mean, he's rocking that 50 cal. I'll never forget it because it was so loud by this point. I had taken 1 shot of morphine by that point, but it doesn't do a whole lot for you. My vitals were too low, couldn't take any more. At some point, I had lost enough blood where I was getting tired, and I told them I wanted to take a nap. And I was like, look, I'm tired, just wake me up when the medevac's here. And I started to doze off, and they slapped the crap out of me. It's like, what are you doing? I'm just tired. Let me go to sleep. And they slapped the crap out of me again. I was like, please stop slapping me. And they're like, sir, you got to stay with us. We'll make you a deal. We'll stop slapping you if you stay with us. I was like, all right, deal. So, you know, they're trying to keep me talking and keep me alert. And we're talking about baseball, my kids. You know, that's probably the thing that runs through your head the most at that moment was just my kids. It took, you know, skipping ahead, it took 45 minutes for the medevac to get there. We were up at elevation, it's 120 degrees, and it's hard for the birds to get lift, and also they had to wait for the Apache escort in order to get there, and it's a hot LZ. As time went on, I got more and more agitated, just because you got that golden hour. You got that golden hour. If you get to the hospital in the golden hour, you got a pretty good chance of living. That's what we call it, the golden hour. I just kept talking. I kept getting more and more agitated. They couldn't do anything else for me. I'm like, where's the medevac? Where's the medevac? And I'll never forget that feeling laying on the stretcher, looking back, and you hear it. That was the first time that I believed I had a chance. You're like, man, I might be able to make it. So what I didn't know at the time is that I took some shrapnel from the bomb, had gone into my butt and burned it to the bone. And they picked me up on the stretcher, loaded me on the hood of my Humvee. And as they loaded me on the hood of the Humvee, the heat from the engine is just burning my rear end. And I'm screaming in agony, like, take me off of this. But it was only route down was on that Humvee because the EOD had cleared the route down. And they're just like, stay with us, sir. Just, we can't take you off here. We're going down the hill. We get to the bottom. My 18 Delta had fought his way. He had fought his way across the battlefield at that point to get over to me, and he's the one controlling. They loaded me on the Black Hawk, and they were like, hey, if you don't get him there in a few minutes, he's not going to make it. He's lost too much blood. And so they loaded me in the aircraft. At that point, the crew gave me more morphine. After that, I was pretty much in and out of it. They redlined this helicopter. So we land at Tarancal, which is a level 2 surgical team. Like, they can do everything besides MRI and CAT scan. that when we landed, literally the helicopter is breaking apart. And I don't mean like falling apart, but there's pieces falling off of it because they flew that as fast, as hard as they could, past safety, so much that they broke the helicopter. I have a piece of the helicopter that the flight crew gave me so that I knew how hard they flew to keep me alive. We make it to the medical facility, and I'm like trying to fight with the surgical team. I'm like, I got to get back out to my guys. And I'm trying to get off the table, and they're pushing me down, and they finally intubate me and put me out. And before they do that, I was getting ready to go in for surgery, and they didn't know if I was going to make it or not. They let me call home, and I told my wife at the time that I'm coming home. I'm just coming home a little shorter. I was 6'4". I mean, I was on some heavy meds by then, but I mean, I was a big guy. I was like, I'm coming home just a little shorter. And I was more concerned at how they were feeling. So it was the middle of the night. But I was in Kandahar for 4 days, completely unstable. At Tarancout, I took 30 liters of blood at that point. That was my first rounds of surgeries. I exhausted the blood supply at Tarancout. They had to fly more in order to give me while I was in surgery. They had, I had to get blood that hadn't been completely screened just because they didn't have time. I moved to Kandahar. I was finally medevac to Kandahar. I was there for 4 days, like I said, completely unstable. I was not stable enough. My fever was 104, 105. I had gotten a super bug from the dirt, and they weren't having any, it wasn't working. I got a really bad bone infection, and I was not breaking a fever. I was teetering back and forth, life and death. And finally, 4 days, I was stable enough. They loaded me on an aircraft. They either took my right knee before I left for Germany or while I was in Germany. The decision was made that I needed to go to San Antonio because that's where the burn center is for any wounded. This was medevac to San Antonio, Texas. Again, my fever was still 104, 105. I really did not realize what was going on. So I was so out of it and heavy medicated until they took off the bottom 6 inches of my femur. They had took off the bottom 6 inches of my femur and given me this large antibiotic cocktail because even when I got to Texas, my fever was still 104, 105, and they couldn't get it. And they had to keep cutting it back, but the more they cut back, the harder it is to learn how to walk again with prosthetics. And the knee, losing a knee is a big deal. I'd already lost one, and then a second one is even harder to ever have the opportunity to walk again. It's work. So they cut off the bottom 6 inches of my femur, gave me this huge antibiotic cocktail. My wife at the time had to basically sign off that this antibiotic cocktail could potentially, kill me, but they had to get ahead of the infection or I was gonna die from infection, not necessarily my wounds. I was already past that. Finally, my fever broke coming out of that surgery, and I had, what is going on? You're laying in bed, your legs are gone. Keep in mind that I had spent a year in the Q course. This is what I've been fighting for, your career. You want to serve, you want to be the best. I mean, that is what you do. So here I am. I've been a Green Beret for all of 6 months, and it's gone like that in one instance. Now, you can still be there, but it's the realization. And I'm laying there, and I had a pity party for a couple of days. You think, like, I'm going to have to be babied for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not going to be self-sufficient. Being physical was who I was. I was a collegiate athlete. Physical was, I was 6'4", 205 pounds, and I was in the best shape of my life at that point in time. And I questioned whether I could be physical from here on out. That was something that was important to me at the time. And had a pity party for a couple of days. My nurse is yelling at me because they put this hand bike in there and they put these little things. You're supposed to do pull-ups and work out. And I was like, lady, are you crazy? I just got blown up. She's like, you got to do your exercise. I was like, I'm not doing anything. And I'm fighting for a couple of days. I was like, I just got blown up a week ago. Like, we're going back and forth. And after some time, I really took the opportunity to say, take stock of where I'm at, how lucky I was, and just, I'm not going to let one bad day ruin the rest of my life, if that makes any sense. Like, I had to move forward. There was no going back. There were people that would come into the hospital room, people that had already been wounded, and you start learning about the possibilities. Like, yeah, they make hand controls. I was like, damn, no legs, I can't push the gas pedal. Like, that's not good when you have to be driven around. I mean, there's those thoughts, but then once you find out there's ways to do anything, you know, like you figured it out, like I can still be self-sufficient and still be I can still do things on my own. I don't need to be babied or helped. Like, I don't need pity. So I made up my mind at that point that I was moving forward, that I was going to not let one bad day kill the rest of my life. There was a will, there's a way to do anything, and I was determined to do that. So from a rehab perspective, I was inpatient from September till just before Thanksgiving that year. I was inpatient until then, and then I started rehab. Rehab process is a grind. It is not just about learning to walk. Your whole body has to adjust. You're totally swollen. You put all this weight, like you've just been through an explosion. Everything's swollen. Your body's figuring out. I had lost a lot of skin on this leg from burns and just being ripped off. And so I went through several skin grafts, which are extremely painful when you wake up, and there's a lot that goes into it. But it was a process, and they kept not taking. And finally, I got some artificial skin that was made out of pig stomach, is what they put on this leg. This leg was fine because they had surgically cut this, so this was just pull the skin and muscle over, close it up, and this one's good. But this was pig stomach. Started the rehab process. It's working core. It's our whole body really. For me, walking as a bilateral above knee is like you running. It's a workout. Like, it is. Only 70% of people who lose both legs above the knee ever walk for any amount of time. I don't use my chair for much of anything at all, unless I'm going to a ball game where there's a million people and they're not paying attention, or that's really it. I decided that I had to make the best out of the situation. A year in, right before I was supposed to get fitted for my first set of legs, actual legs, I fell in the shower and sliced open my skin graft. And that set me back another 3 months. So to wait for that to heal. I finally got my legs. I'm walking. Things are moving forward. And then the artificial skin that was there started to basically rot. So I had to go in. They took all the skin and tissue off the lat here. I have a scar that runs the whole right side of my body from here to my lower back. And they had to take all the skin and tissue, and they grafted on this leg. And luckily that took me another 6 months to wait for that, because they took blood vessels, muscle, they do all this stuff. It was almost a 19-hour surgery that I was in surgery for, like hooking all this up. And luckily they sent me back 6 months. But just kept moving forward, continued jumping the rehab process. It is a grind. It's something you got to want to do, but it was important to me to have the option to walk. And like I said, it is a workout, but I like walking. I prefer it. I don't like being in a chair. There is something with the normalcy and the way I do, or how I feel about it and I see it. I think it's important. Plus, it's how I get my cardio in. I don't like running, so I'll just walk. Fast forward to today. Last year, or 2017, the spring of 2017, I finished up my MBA at Rice, and I'm now a vice president of a smaller company. I used to work for a big firm, took over a vice president role with a smaller company recently, 2 weeks ago actually. And so things are moving forward. What I would like for you to take from my story is, first thing is, don't be the person that says, but. When you have a goal, you want something, go get it. You would not believe how many people that I met in the Army that said, well, I would have been through Ranger School, or I would have been a Green Beret, but this was in the way, something, life, whatever it is. And in your mind, you think like, well, if you really wanted it, you go do it. You know what I mean? Like, don't ever let yourself be held back. Don't be the person that says, but. And that's just me looking back on what could have been, because I can tell you right now, I'm probably the luckiest person on the face of the earth. There are a million reasons why I should not be here today, and I'm here. And like I said earlier, I've been through the ringer, but I'm determined not to let one bad day ruin the rest of my life. And I think everybody should have that attitude. So when you look back, don't say but. If you want to do something, go do it. You're going to regret looking back saying, man, I should have done that, or I should have done this. Don't ever be that person. Also, don't take every day for granted. Like, enjoy life. If you live it to the fullest, I didn't think it was going to be me. I never thought it was going to be me until it is you. And that could be with anything. That could go with anything. I mean, you don't know. I mean, hit by a car. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen that you were unexpected, and maybe you should have done, something you wish you would have done prior to that you didn't get to do because you made excuse. Always push forward. It's about, just like they said in the Sandy Hook thing, that was important to me, is move forward. Growing up, it was in our house, it was like, you made a mistake, or you did this happened to you on the ball field. Man, I lost that game, or I lost this inning, lost this game in the 9th inning. So what? I can't control that. I can't go back and change it. It is what, I hate that saying, but that's true. It is what it is. There's no going back, rehashing it, doing things differently. You are where you're at today, and all you can do is move forward from that one position. The same goes for in life. You will face some kind of adversity, chances are, whether it be health related, professionally, grad school, you don't get into school, you turn in your application, you don't know what's happening, you can't freak out. All you can control is how you did in the classroom, how you did on your standardized testing, how you did here, how you did there. All you control is what you control. Don't waste a bunch of time and energy worrying about things that are out of your control. And that goes for me today. I could sit back and be miserable and shake my fist at, damn, I used to be this, athlete. I want to be doing this. I could do this. I can't. I don't waste any energy. I've never had a single nightmare, nor do I won't say that I never think about it, but I don't think about it in that aspect of, God, I wish I would, this one, I would be so much better off, or this or that. It's wasted energy. Doesn't mean anything. It's garbage. I'm moving forward. This is life. This is what it is. All I can do is make the best out of it. And I really have. I'm everything, for whatever reason, whatever your beliefs, everything, it may or may not happen for a reason. But there's a lot of good things. Like, I'm still there for my kids. My wife, who at the time, or my wife now, who I would have never met, she was my nurse when I first got to BAMC in San Antonio. I mean, things happen. Like, you end up where you're supposed to be at some point. Whatever that rationale is, but I just moved forward. I'm happy to be where I'm at. I hit the lotto, just not for $1 million. I got a second chance at life. It's a lot more valuable, in my opinion. I am beyond blessed, beyond belief. I enjoy each and every day, and I challenge all of you all to enjoy each and every day, even when you're getting yelled at, or you got to fold that rack up in the morning, or whatever you're doing. Like, yeah, it sucks. You can complain about it, but again, wasted energy. Like, it's a good day to be alive. I can promise you that. I enjoy each and every day, and there are things. I keep a picture, and I forgot to tell the first group that. Keep a picture on my desk at work every day when my boss, or it used to be in my old job, she'd be hounding me. And it's me in the hospital. They had laid an ACU top over me with my Purple Heart on that, and I'm intubated. I'm on a breathing machine, and it could always be worse. Just remember that. Your day can always be worse. So I promise you that it can only get better if you move forward. And that's just my reminder, even when I'm at work, office late, things are happening, I'm just getting chewed on. It could always be worse. So, that's my story. I'm beyond blessed. I'm humbled to speak to y'all today. If you have any questions, I'm available here. If anybody has anything, kind of top it off. Like I said, I would have never joined the Army. I was the cadet nobody would say would ever been in the service, but it was by far the best thing I've ever done. Got to see the world in a different way. It taught me about leadership, being the first guy in the door in the morning and the last to leave, never taking anything for granted, inspiring people, leading people. It made me appreciate how lucky we are to be here in this country, and it's not perfect, but I guarantee you it's the best thing out there. I've seen some really rough areas in the world, and it opened up my eyes to a different way. I'm from Virginia. I was like, man, I'm never leaving home. I'm comfortable here, but it was good to get out of my comfort zone. I pushed myself to a level that I never would have otherwise. And I was, not tooting my own horn, I was good at what I did. I was good at leading people. And it was a lot like a sports team, like being, everybody working together for a common goal, working towards something. And it was something bigger than myself. It's something that I very much appreciate. So not that I'm recruiting you for any reason, but I probably could be an Army recruiter if I wanted to. But it was the best thing I've ever done. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing, probably step a little left. But other than that, there's not much I would change or do different. I'm beyond blessed and just happy to be where I'm at today. Yes.
Hi, my name is Lina Torijan. I'm from Kabul, Afghanistan. I just want to take the time to thank you for sharing your story and for your sacrifice and for being in my country. I really value and appreciate all the people who are there, either if it's in behalf of protecting the United States of America, while that may be the only thing some soldiers are there for me it means a lot because I owe my life and my family's life to troops that came in Afghanistan.
That's
so,
awesome.
I thank you for your service and
Thank
your
you.
sacrifice. It means a lot for millions of Afghans who are not represented in Afghanistan by the government or by the local army. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I made some good friends in Afghanistan. My interpreters, our local fighters, they're awesome people. Yes, sir.
So you said you went in the Army a year after graduation. Was there an event in your civilian life that was like kind of that aha moment, like, hey, I need to do something with my life?
I was working at that point. I was working for a small aviation company. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. There wasn't really an aha moment other than I needed to do something. I needed to do something more worthwhile than what I was doing at that point. It wasn't anything that I thought was worthwhile at that time, so I really had to do something different. I thought I would learn leadership in the Army, which I did, but truthfully, when I first joined, it was literally a job. Really, to be honest with you, it morphed into something completely different, but going into it, it was just to do something different than what I was doing. Not for, people have these grandiose ideas. I really didn't. Sir.
Sir, my name is Mr. George. I'm a second class cadet here at VMI. I was wondering, when you're in the hospital and you're getting all those surgeries and you didn't know if you're going to live or die, like, is there anything specific that got you through, like, day by day, or is it more like the big picture of things of like getting better and learning?
For me, honestly, it's probably my family. Most of all, I have 5 kids now. I wanted to get back to some type of normalcy for them. I think that's what drives me, especially at that point in time, was just getting better and trying to get back to what I was, knowing that I was going to be different. Life was going to be different. I had to adjust, but that I get back to as much of normalcy as possible for them. The family pays a huge sacrifice, not only on deployments, but just in the 7 years before I was wounded, the most I had been home was 6 months at one stretch. That doesn't count you count the field time and all that stuff, and that 6 months was the captain's career course. It was no field time or anything like that. It was straight classroom. That was the only time that I had a significant amount of time at home, and I just felt like I owed that to them. One night they got a call that I was wounded. The next couple days later, once things had improved, they were on a plane, like literally living in a suitcase in a hotel room, and so I had to move forward for them. Sir?
Do you still keep in touch with some of the guys from the ODA?
Oh yeah. My team sergeant and I were really good friends. We send each other texts all day, every day, so funny stuff, some not. My team chief, I stay in touch with all those. My team chief, one of the challenges showing up to my ODA, my team chief had literally been in Special Forces since I was in the 1st grade. So think about showing up to a team and trying to take leadership over with a guy who's been in special forces. He was a really junior enlisted person who had worked himself up to a warrant officer, but he was literally, it was tough. I mean, it was a good dynamic, but we stayed in contact. I'm good friends with those. Matter of fact, when I flew in, even people that were in my company, West Pointers and a few other people that I've stayed in contact with. I mean, those are people that I serve with are probably my best friends. I mean, to be honest with you, we've been through some pretty rough times, and we always, whether it's, I went to a wedding in Vegas for one person I was lieutenants with back in the day. I mean, we all meet up when we can. It's hard when you're all over the world, but you still, through text and email and everything else, my best friends. I'll be there whenever I can be, and we talk as much as possible. I mean, obviously kids, like, we call in the car generally is when we talk, but we still talk. So, sir.
I know, like, from a lot of soldiers or people in the military, especially people like yourself that went to special forces and were officers, the military at the time is kind of the end all be all for them. They feel like they're the most purposeful when they're doing that, and they really at that time going back in the civilian world sometimes can be a step down from kind of their military career. I know for people that like yourself that were wounded, it can be really tough to repurpose and feel like you're getting the same fulfillment out of what you're doing outside of the military. Is that a tough thing for you to do? And if so, how did you do it?
I mean, it's an adjustment. Like, so when I first got injured and I first come to the realization that I was going to be okay, so my goal is like, hey, I'm going to get back to the ODA. I'm going to be the first bilateral above knee amputee, and nobody's going to kill your dream and say, bro, that's not possible. But it's one of those things where you just had to come. I personally had to come to a realization. And again, it goes back to stupid. This is the situation I'm in. There's no, nothing I can do. All I can do is move forward. It's hard. That's the one thing I do miss is, doing that. My company is, my company at 7th Group is back over there now. It would kill to be back over there, back in the fight. But it wasn't in the cards for me. I try not to look back that much, and I don't often. I really don't. I'm not going to lie and say that's the one thing I do miss. I'd probably give up almost anything to still be back doing what I was doing. You have goals and dreams, and, as an Army officer, you have to plan 3 to 5 years down the road on where you want to be. So, when I showed up to my battalion at 7th Group, my first thing my commander is asked, well, what do you want to do after your team time? I'm like, I just got my Green Beret. I just got here. He's like, do you want to go Delta, CIA, blah, blah, blah? Are you going to stay in group? And the reason why he's asking is because if I tell him I want to go do some special mission unit or try out for it, he's going to take away certain jobs from me just because he wants people to stay there. So I guess where I was going with that is just really like I had this grandiose plan, everything down to a pat, and then it's gone. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. But I had to move forward. The civilian world is different. People believe in that 9 to 5 thing, and you're like, no, we got this to do, and you're so mission oriented that nobody sees it the way you do. So that's a bit of adjustment because people I'm working. This is what you pay me for. This is what I'm giving you. I'm not giving you. Versus in the Army, you're going to be there until 10 o'clock. I don't care. And that's everybody. I'm not just saying you work, but that's the nature of the business. You're not leaving until the job's over. In the civilian world, that's not like that. There's quitting time, and you look down and the whole floor is empty except for a handful of people, and you learn quickly that it's just different, and you have to adjust or you're not going to do well. And I mean, some people have trouble adjusting. It's a personal thing. I think you have to adapt to your environment in any situation. Even in the Army, you have to be adaptable to, and I think that was something I had to learn, and just being deployed was something I learned. Where I was in Afghanistan, there's a village, it's a Ruzgan, but it was a village I was in had no water, no electricity, no internet, no running water. They didn't know any. You have to adapt to the way they see it. Yeah, it's everything. You've been places where, in Sadr City and Baghdad, there's literally 3 foot of sewage in the street, and people are living a certain way. You have to adjust and see how you can help them, and that's kind of how you have to do it. And it's really, and not in the military, but everything in life, adjust the way you see it, how you see fit. You have to understand that not everybody sees it the same way you do, and kind of tailor your leadership style or how you're going to move forward with that. Sir?
Influencers in your life growing up, I don't suspect that, you know, you were able to overcome adversity for the first time as an 18 or 27-year-old. Who are the influencers and what did they bring to your life that put you in that position, do you think?
Probably my parents is the biggest influencer. I got many spankings back in the day. You know, there was a no quit, and, you know, funny story, and I don't know if I said this already, but my first day here, when I matriculated here, my mom's bawling her eyes out. You know, she's like, you can come home, it's okay. If you want to leave, you can come home and quit, it's all right. You go to school back home. And she walks out of the room, my dad's like, you can forget everything your mother just said. You're not coming home until this is over. So we don't quit in our household. So that was kind of how it was in our household. You know, it was very strict, very regimented. I don't mind regimented. Some people I don't mind regimented. I like that personally. I'm a structure person, so I like the structure, but at home it was very much, you don't quit. And when you are, like my dad used to say when I'm messing up in school, he's like, I don't care if you're gonna be a trash man, you're gonna be the best trash man ever. Stuff like that. Like, my parents were really adamant that you don't quit and that you see it through, and whatever you do, you're the best at it, and you work your tail off in order to do that. And that's kind of the approach I took to the rehab process. Is like, I'm not satisfied with the status quo. It'd be easy for me to get in my wheelchair, not put my prosthetics on. I don't do that. I get up every morning at 4:20 and I go to the gym. I work out every morning before work. I still do that. It's important to do that. That's just one example. Like, you have to grind each and every day. It is a grind. You got to take a break every once in a while, but I think here, and everybody, you know, they say this is a good, you know, not a good place to be, but a good place to be from. The grind here, especially being a student athlete here, is a grind. You not only have classroom, but you have a sport, you know, or even if you don't have a sport, you have the military still, you have other extracurricular activities that take up a bunch of time. This influenced me to keep going, because like something that I never really thought of at the time, and you don't see it, is, and I learned this more so in Ranger School in the Q course, was like, you can go so far, but I guarantee you think this is all you can do, but you can go further than that. I promise you can. There's so many people that quit, and I keep saying, I would have done this, but it's a mind game. It's literally telling yourself, you can do this, and as long as you don't quit, you have to be there at the end. If you don't quit and you're standing at the end, your chances are pretty good. Most people that don't make it in these schools are people that just quit along the way. It's too hard. It's, you know, it's literally, and no pun intended, one foot in front of the other. If you keep doing that, it'll be all right. I guarantee you, one foot in front of the other. And this place does that. It'll grind it out of you, but it helped me deal with it, and also the integrity piece of it. You'll see your peers out there, and I don't care, civilian in the world, military, you'll see your peers who don't have the same integrity and intestinal fortitude that you have in whatever school you are or wherever you're at. This place, you know, and your other academies, they'll grind that into you, and it helps you, and it helps you adjust. And you'll see people like complaining on how rough things are, and it's like, man, I slept on a wooden cot with a mattress this thick. It's all right. We'll be all right. You know, it's just have to tell yourself. So this place was definitely an influence on me. Somebody over here had, okay, all right. Anybody else? All right. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. I'm humbled to talk to you. Hopefully you took something. Hopefully something I said makes sense to you and helps you. But just enjoy life, put the best foot forward, and keep trucking.
Personal level, it's great having you back.
Yeah, man, good to be back, man. I appreciate it.
On behalf of the superintendent, commandant staff, faculty and staff, and the CLE,
We thank you very much for coming
Awesome.
back.
Thank you.
Thank you for
I appreciate
giving your words of wisdom to
Thank you.
everybody and whole damn team.
Thank you.
buddy.
All right. Thank you.
Done.